Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to New England Stormwolves Thunder versus Old Man Gaming as we jump into the first week of UJL in fall here. I'm joined by the wonderful Spaff as we should be getting into Pro Draft relatively shortly. But before that, we just want to break down what teams are going to be coming at you today because it is our first week and we don't really know either of them. Spaff, you got any insights for us on these guys?
You know, I'm very excited to watch this game, to be entirely honest with you, because while both of these teams are relatively new to the league, there is a little bit of a experience gap, if you will, between Old Man Gaming and the Stormwolves in two different categories. Old Man Gaming is actually doing this for their second season here with UJL, and they've known each other for a long time. They've been playing games together for over 10 years. So what I'm looking for on this game is the synergy and, the experience of Old Man Gaming versus, the talent and the merit system of Stormwolves. They, have that merit system that I spoke of that lets them kind of work their way up through the ranks within their own organization. And we actually have 3 new players on their roster that have worked their way up from the lower teams. We have Leo, Yomi, and Piku, and that's going to be their mid and bot lane together.
Yeah, no, I actually think it's really interesting that you mentioned the bot lane has moved up together because we talked about what we expect to be a lot of really good communication for Old Man Gaming because of the volume of time they've spent together. But moving a bot lane from team to team together is actually something that I think is going to be the most useful. You run the risk in these styles of development of starting to separate players that build really good synergy. But when you move up just a duo lane together, I feel like that can really upgrade an entire roster.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think it's very interesting that the 3 players they moved up was their mid and their bot lane one because of what you said. The bot lane being able to move together doesn't break that duo synergy. And it also allows them to still kind of control the lane the way that they want to, along with the mid laner. Just by looking at this champ pool, this dude likes to play champions that don't need other champions to help him. These are champions that are going to be lane dominant. They're going to be able to be hyper carrying, and they kept the top in the jungle, and that's that. Outside of bot and support, that's the other duo on the map. Those are the 2 that are going to build those synergies together. So bringing up a duo that already has synergy and bringing up a new mid laner, I think that was a good decision.
Yeah, I think that we're going to see quite a bit here as we're encountering some rather odd technical issues that I'm going to have to solve. But while I do sort of rejoin here, I want to make sure that everybody can hear me. I am really excited because you had mentioned that very same sort of, I want to call it independence from the mid lane coming in here. And I think that we're getting sort of a similar champion pool read on Old Man Gaming's mid laner Silly Champ, because with the exception of the Orianna, I feel like, and you had mentioned this a little bit before we got into the game, and I'm sorry to steal your point, but
no worries.
That we actually have quite a bit of overlap between the champion pools and the styles in which they play.
Yeah, no. So one thing that I'm looking at, and I know that I made these points, but one thing that I missed when we talked about it earlier was the fact that the mid laner for Old Man Gaming does have the Victor in his champ pool as one of his top 5. And that's a champion that, whether it be in pro play or in solo queue, you don't really see it that often. And I wouldn't be surprised if he whips it out, maybe has a little bit of experience on it, because Victor did just get that new Psyop skin. And something that can kind of shove that lane in over and over and keep lane prio. That can kind of shut down those hyper carries. And, I need to rejoin as well. Yeah, my screen is black. Give me a moment.
Yeah, if you just click play, it should take you right to that little tournament icon, and we can jump in and get this going. Both teams are readying up. We do have the pro draft ready to go. It's just a matter of tournament codes timing out, and it is the reality of organizing something like this. But as we sort of, wait on all our technical issues to be solved, I do think that it's important that, you mentioned that Victor is something that is going to be available for them. This game, New England Stormwolves are on the blue side, so won't necessarily have the option to counterpick with something like the Victor, and would have to be potentially blind depending on the actual draft strategies that we see coming out of both these teams. And with New England Stormwolves, I want to be proven wrong, but I expect that because of their more developmentally focused attitude as an organization, that we will see a little bit more draft intention coming from this team, and that may be able to punish a lot of what is otherwise very strong players and very strong picks from Old Man Gaming.
Yeah, the one thing that's really sticking out to me also, I got the invite. It's saying my patcher is disconnected right now. So I may need to restart league. Give me just a moment. The one thing that really sticks out to me, however, is like we said, these people have very similar champ pools, very similar roles, but the supports, I think the supports is what's going to flip flop the early game because, you know, we're looking at a lot of shield slaves from the support from Old Man, or from rather Stormwolves. We've got things like Lulu, Karma, Yumi, Rakan, things that want to stick to that 80 carry and stay on them all game long. But from Old Man Gaming, the two things that stick out the most to me are the Senna and the Pike. And when I see those champions, that screams, I'm a support, but I want to be able to do things on my own too. And that means that he's going to have a lot of map pressure or lane pressure in the early game. And depending on how that coin flips, I think that'll really determine a lot of the game, because if they're going to be playing around bot lane, those support matchups are what are going to matter the most.
Yeah, and the ability that that the bot lane of Old Man Gaming has with the different support pool, right, to start to take over the game. Potentially, those champions snowball so much harder than something like a shielding support that is really more of a win more champion, as opposed to a I'm going to dominate the lane on my own. And so I'm very curious to see how it is that the differentiation in support pools ends up leading to perhaps a differentiation in play styles once we do start to see that first, second item come in and see where the supports specifically choose to invest their gold. Because on things like Senna and Pike, once you get about 1,000 gold under your belt, it really starts to change the way that the lane will go.
I absolutely agree. I'm a big Pike player now. I mostly play him mid, but I know how quickly that champion can blow a game out of proportion, whether it's him or the AD carries getting the kills. He can really turn a game's tide if he gets going early.
Yeah, he really can. And the ability to really snowball with gold as well is something that I think we'll have to keep an eye on. I do want to, just as we start loading into the game, take a very short technical break so that we can sort out some final bits and bobs on our side and get you guys into the draft as soon as possible. But those are going to be the two teams coming at you tonight as soon as we return. Folks, welcome back to UJL Fall. That was a very short break, as we had mentioned, and we've definitely gotten into the pro draft here. Once again, my name is Diastripa, and I'm joined by the very same spaff that you had heard before as we actually jump into the draft here for New England Stormwolves versus Old Man Gaming.
Now see, this is something that I was looking out for. Two bans. Okay, so the Set and the Caitlyn are both things that overlap in these players' champion pools. So whether it be, the top laners that are taking the Set, or New England's mid laner actually plays Set as well. And I know that Set mid can be very powerful, but the Caitlyn, that's something I was looking to see taken off the table.
Yeah, it's interesting because Caitlyn's been nerfed relatively recently, but he still has that sort of, she's fresh in people's minds as this person who can really take over a lane and give you a dictatorship over the bottom side of the map for those first 15 minutes. So I like that it's been taken off the board here. Maybe we're going to see something a little bit new out of both these teams.
They're going to look to take the Syndra and the Olaf and the Syndra off the board. Now, the Olaf is a little interesting to me because it doesn't really match a lot of the playing pool of the other jungler. However, if he's been grinding that in solo queue lately, maybe it's something that they're picking out just off of scouting. But I like the Syndra ban. Syndra is a very, very safe champion. It makes it very difficult for things like the Yone, the LB, the Silas to actually be able to get those leads early. And we all know how much damage Syndra can do when she gets to scale. Now, that's what I was looking for. The Caitlyn was taken off the board. New England takes advantage of that and grabs the Ashe first. And I think, inexplicably right now, Ashe is the best AD carry in the bot lane. She's safe, she has CC, and she can be lane dominant.
Yeah, and Ashe, like you mentioned, has sort of taken the opposite end of that lane bully that Caitlyn had. I expect her to still be prevalent as we move into this World's meta patch. And it looks like the response going to be starting off with a Yumi here. Now, we've seen Yumi Jhin be played relatively frequently, as well as Jhin being something that can be picked into the Ashe. Although I think that Old Man Gaming, they might want to sit back and see if they can pick up a hyper carry here, because Curtis plays quite a few of those very late game scaling champions.
Now, here's something that I like. I think that the carry is looking to be the Hecarim here. Because I think, when I used to coach a team, Yuumi Hecarim was something we did on Yuumi's release. That is disgusting if the Hecarim is even or ahead. Too much speed, too much... Oh, my lights just flashed. Too much control over the map. He does so much damage. I think that the Yuumi Hecarim was what they were intending to do from the start of draft. Also, it takes away one of those shield slaves from the other support, but he's going to pick up the Karma in response.
Yeah, plenty of shielding supports to go around. Now that we have the Karma locked in as well as Shen, it's actually going to be very hard to burst somebody down on New England Stormwolves, and it looks like the consistent damage is going to be the answer to that. You had mentioned Hecarim as well as Yuumi. Sivir going to amplify Hecarim's strength so much more, as well as bring a lot of consistent damage of her own. I think it's a risky pick, but I like it.
It's very interesting that they picked the Sivir too. Now, because, like I said, we used to draft the Yuumi Hecarim. We used to draft the Yuumi Sivir too. Very annoying lane. They're going to take the Sylas and the Irelia off the board. Two pretty good bans. I like the Sylas ban a lot because that takes away the Yuumi ult, the Hecarim ult, and the Sivir ult from being able to be stolen. And if that's something that someone's comfortable with, those are powerful, organized team ultimates.
Yeah, Leo, no stranger to the Sylas here, and I think that with experience on that Sylas does come the ability to know what ults to steal and what can be really useful. Jarvan going to be taken off the board here as well is going to be a very powerful pick into things like Sivir, who's quite immobile, as well as Hecarim, because he doesn't have a lot of dashes outside of his ultimate to get away from you, so you really want him to be liberated, take away somebody that can sort of stifle that horse where he stands.
I really like, what I would like to think is the double top lane ban, but I know that the mid laner for Old Man also plays Irelia, but it's one of my favorite things to do in the second part of the draft is to ban two of the same things. Now, Trundle is a prio pick for both players, and I like that Old Man Gaming took advantage of that to grab that first. This also gives them counter pick for the mid lane, which is very important for Old Man Gaming because the mid laner for New England is kind of what I'm looking is going to be their carry. We've got safe player Ashe, we've got shielding from Shin and Karma. I imagine that they're not going to pick a carry jungler just by looking at his pool, and I think that getting the counter pick, being able to look at what they grab and being able to say, I'm just going to counterpick you or I'm just going to pick wave clear, I think it could really shut down New England's comp in game one.
I think it really can. There's a level at which I'm very curious to see what that mid lane pick ends up being, but in a way I'm almost more curious to see where Hecarim and Trundle end up going. These are people that we consider junglers for the most part, but both also have the ability to be flexed top, and especially when you start casting your mind back to very recent pro play, we've seen a lot of Hecarim top because of his almost inability to lose lane, especially into strong laners like Shen. I like the Orianna grab here for Old Man Gaming. This is something that a champion that is extremely strong and extremely good when you can sit back and pace yourself.
I absolutely agree. And I mean, man, there is plenty of synergy for that Hecarim. They're going to be looking to play around that top side. So, I mean, we got the move speed from Yuumi, the move speed from Sivir, and the move speed from Orianna. I think they're just going to try to play ball delivery because outside of the Shin, there's not a lot of tanky members on New England right now.
No, and especially when you have somebody like the Trundle, right? Shen all of a sudden becomes just another squishy for yourself. But when we look at both of these comps, the other thing that I think bears mentioning is that New England Stormwolves have two things. They have a lot of disengage, and they have a lot of damage. They have a lot of like very slippery champions that can sort of weave in and out. Old Man Gaming don't have a whole lot of engage to get on top of the disengage that comes out of New England Stormwolves. The amount of shielding and survivability here is going to be really paramount when we start talking about, if we're even, whether Old Man Gaming can really start to find fights that are actually advantageous for them.
One thing I really want to point out here too is while New England has the Ashe and the Karma, which really aren't, explosive champions in the early game. They can be powerful in lane, but when it comes to team fights early game, they just really don't have the oomph that you're looking for. Old Man Gaming, their comp scales well and it scales hard. If this game goes past 30 minutes, I'm trying to look at what New England's going to do to be able to stop, a level 16 Yuumi, a level 16 3-item Sivir, a 3-item Orianna with ball delivery on a Hecarim ult. There's not a lot they're going to be able to do if this game goes long.
Yeah, and I think you really cannot ignore Sivir, especially. I heard you say 3-item Sivir, and I started sweating already because Sivir, while she is a little bit of a riskier pick, is going to be one of those champions that scales extremely well into the late game, completely beating out something like an Ashe, even if they do both have those sort of buff up supports with them, the ability for Sivir to not only amplify her own team's strengths and really sort of mitigate the fact that they don't have that much engage, but also her ability to crit across 5 members potentially is going to be absolutely massive once we start getting into, like you mentioned, these later game fights.
And I mean, the other thing is, if this guy's comfortable on Sivir, if Curtis really knows how to use those spell shields, it's going to make it really hard for them to get to that backline carry because, you know, the Ashe ult, pretty slow. The Shin ult's pretty predictable. And I mean, the only other CC they're looking at here are going to be some slows or roots from Karma, which again, any good Sivir can block that. The Qs from Kayn, which again, not hard to block, and the Echo Stun, which is very telegraphed. I think that the Sivir pick may have been one of the best picks on Old Man Gaming.
It really could be, and it depends how we see this played out, not only in the bot lane, but in the jungle as well, because something that you say when you see almost any Yuumi lane, as well as when it's coupled with something like an immobile carry, is this bot lane is diveable. And as much as we may not have something like an Elise on the side of New England Stormwolves, we do have a Kayn and a Karma that are able to dodge out around turrets very, very nicely, and Ashe who's able to poke you down very quickly. So we might actually see some pretty early turret dives coming in from New England Stormwolves, especially if they can coordinate with somebody like an Echo around level 6 to really punish the quite vulnerable bot lane that Old Man Gaming has got themselves.
That brings up a little bit of a point, more so of a question that I'm going to ask you purely out of experience or inexperience of playing the two champions, but can Sivir spell shield Kayn trying to ult onto her?
I believe she can, yes.
So that even adds another layer to it. But I mean, while that is much less telegraphed, you're absolutely right. At level 6, that Kayn is going to be a menace for their bot lane. And, you know, we could really be thrown for a loop here by Hecarim maybe going jungle unless they switch. But it looks like that timer's already passed. So it definitely is going to be a Trundle jungle. When we're looking at that Hecarim top, which I know from experience is very dominant into the Shin, which can kind of translate into a lot of weird pressure on the map where if that Shin's not able to be strong and tanky and not be chunked out and land against a Hecarim, he's not really gonna want to ult to help the team other way or other places on the map.
That's totally true, and I mean, even before we hit 6, we can see Hecarim be very, very scary when he gets into things like the enemy jungle with that devastating charge, right?
Oh yeah,
being able to just suddenly start fights onto a Kayn who really isn't a champion until he's level 6 is actually potentially a way for Old Man Gaming to completely blow open the game before we even hit 15.
I would love to see that Hecarim try to shut the Kayn down early because Kayn does not want to fight at his blue buff at level 3.
No, he really doesn't. And I think Trundle, on the other hand, also a champion that is going to be very comfortable with that. So we're going to need to see some interesting pathing coming out of Buddha to try and mitigate what I believe is a very exploitable early game from him before we see somebody like Terry and Drone start to take advantage of that.
No, now that I'm looking at these teams side by side in the champ select, I mean, Old Man Gaming gets very tanky very quickly, and I'm kind of excited to see just more of what the itemization is going to be to see how they're going to break that.
Yeah, itemization is going to be huge as we get into this game, but I think that there are still a lot of unknowns while we're loading into this because it is our first game of the season. So we're going to have to find out what it's like on the Rift as soon as we get back from a word from our sponsors.
A vision of quality, a vision of uniformity. We took the time to create something familiar yet refreshing, something with a bit of change.
Designed to fit any brand's unique vision.
Welcome back to the Rift, ladies and gentlemen, as New England Storm Wolves take to the map from the bottom side and Old Man Gaming with their miraculously mid-game heavy comp come onto the Rift from the top side of the map. We're going to see Curtis and British Broadcasting Corporation down towards the bot side, and we're getting a 5-man spread from both these teams, maybe avoiding a little bit of early action. What are you expecting here?
So I'm looking at it a little bit more as we were getting into the champs or getting into the game itself, and I realized that the bot lane for Old Man Gaming, not scary at level 1. Not scary mostly at all in lane. And I'm really looking for that Ashe to just kind of try to stat check at level 2. I mean, if that Ashe has those Q stacks ready to go, I think that could be a really fast turning point in the early game. That's going to be way before the Orianna or the Echo is going to be able to roam, and we're not going to see a gank that early, I don't think, from the Trundle or the Kayn. Like we said, the Kayn's not going to be looking to fight, and the Trundle is probably going to look topside with the comp that they have.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if we see an early gank as well, especially, as you mentioned, because of the little bit of wind-up time that we see from somebody like a Trundle, especially in terms of his ability to gank. He will be spotted moving to that bot side, though. New England Storm Wolves getting a ward in by the Raptor camp there will know where the Trundle has begun and maybe keep a little bit of an eye out towards the bot side, just in case.
Now, I'm not any of these players. I'm not going to claim to be as good as any of these people. But if I was on New England, all of my focus is going to be on that bot lane because I'm a top lane player, and I can tell you that Shin Hecarim matchup is not very fun for the Shin, and Orianna is just naturally going to beat the Echo in lane. So I think if they're really going to look to be explosive in the early game, they're going to have to try to shut down that very weak Sivir Yuumi.
Yeah, and granted, Sivir Yuumi does have the advantage of being able to take an additional summoner spell. We're going to see that in the form of the barrier here onto Curtis, maybe to mitigate a little bit of that potential level 2 damage that can come in, as we should be seeing them very soon. Sivir does have the ability to shove those waves and get to hit the level 2 right then. I don't believe they have the stats to contest, but a respectful play from them backing off the wave will actually let them keep their health bars around for a little bit longer.
Ooh, Shin is going to get that early trend. There we go. There's the raw power of Hecarim in the early game. Shin is just going to lose this, and unless he's willing to blow a flash, I think that he's going to die here. And it's going to be blood over to Drone.
Very nice first blood picked up by Drone there in the top side, and a little bit of an experience from Tony costing him his life.
And I think that was one thing that maybe Tony just didn't notice, but that Hecarim doesn't have flash. Oh, it looks like
there's another taunt, though. It's right off the teleport. Terry is here to try and peel for his top laner, but won't be able to get it done in time. There's going to be Boxing Buddha. Not a very early game champion. Still going to be able to pick up a few of those orbs for himself, get him closer to that red Kayn transformation that he's going to be getting off the melee champions.
I'm looking to see the Hecarim's TPing right back, and the Trundle and the Kayn are still hovering. Oh, he's going straight for the Kayn.
Ooh, nice home guards straight into Boxing Buddha, and Terry's still around if they want to try and make this a 2v2. This is one that Hecarim should be able to win, especially with Trundle. Force the flash into Boxing Buddha, and he's going to be able to get away. Bot side is being pushed in, but towards the top side, it is Old Man Gaming winning out.
And you always hate to have that feeling when you're, sitting bot lane, you've got the other two shoved under turret, you're winning lane, and then you just see a mess of a fight happening over and over on the opposite side of the map.
Yeah, it's going to be potentially really scary. We thought we were going to see a lot of action towards the bot side, but it has been the top side that has been super explosive, and Hecarim now with boots as well as the vest for himself, the little cloth armor there that he's picked up, is going to have a lot of laning power into somebody like the Shen, who teleported but didn't get himself any items.
Good point to make. And also one thing that I kind of got interrupted by the Shin TPing back and killing the Hecarim was this Hecarim didn't take Flash or Ghost. This Hecarim took Ignite top. So I'm going to be looking to see that dude use an Ignite off cooldown every single time it's up, because like we saw at level 2, the Shin just can't beat the Hecarim in a one-on-one.
Yeah, I doubt that you'll be disappointed. I think we're going to be getting a lot of ignites here, as already we're seeing a little bit more fighting in Old Man Gaming's jungle. We saw, Buddha actually going for a really spicy invade there, trying to get what advantages he can. Has actually just netted himself a little bit of even farm with the Trundle, who won't have as many camps as him up now. So maybe Kayn able to boost himself up a little bit further.
I also want to look a little bit further ahead into what we might see in the late game. So I had mentioned how I love the Sivir Yuumi, and I love the Sivir Hecarim. Oh gosh, Yuumi Hecarim. But I don't know if I like the Hecarim Sivir Yuumi. Because the idea with the Yuumi is to keep that hyper carry safe or to buff up that hard engage. But you're either going to have to pick between the Hecarim losing out on that massive boost they could be getting from the Yuumi, or the Sivir being able to be protected.
I think that's a really good point that you bring up. There's not a whole lot of peel here for Old Man Gaming. It is going to be a lot of investment into that front line, and if that doesn't work out, we do see Curtis really not having any defensive tools other than his own spell shield, and I think that's a really big part of why he's taken Barrier at this point in the game.
And I do want to point out real quick that Ashe and Sivir completely even in gold right now. Sivir has a little bit more CS, but what I was hoping to see would be a very lane-dominant, poke-heavy lane from the Ashe, and the Karma is just kind of falling flat right now, and if they aren't able to shut this lane down, it's going to be a problem quickly.
Yeah, and the Doran's shield actually is doing a big part of that. You see Curtis sitting here at full health along with the Yuumi. Obviously, Yuumi more than able to pull her weight when it comes to bringing you that laning sustain, but the Doran's shield is actually a really big part of why we see the Sivir at such high health. And like what you mentioned, it's supposed to be a poke-heavy lane. Towards the bot side, though, we see Kayn starting the Dragon, as at the very least, we do see Yomi and Pikuniku getting the shove into Curtis.
And I think it's very interesting how aggressive this Kayn is pathing lately. We've already seen him try to invade twice. He took the early scuttle when he knew Trundle was top, almost got killed for it. And he's starting the Dragon, but it works because, you know, while there may not be a lot of poke, their bot lane has perma-prio in that lane. Sivir Yuumi can't really push that hard against the AoE Qs of the Karma and the Ws of the Ashe.
Yeah, now that we see a little bit of AP being picked up for this Echo too, he started to be able to push on his own into the Orianna, just being able to perma-clear with the Qs that he has. What is this, Z-Drive Resonance, isn't it? As he's able to keep the Orianna in check, and granted, Orianna's happy, but maybe Terry isn't actually that excited about the fact that what is pretty early game champion in the Trundle hasn't actually been able to take a lot of duels in his favor.
And the Orianna is starting to build a little bit of a CS lead too, so I'm looking to see when that Orianna makes her next back what she's going to be looking to grab. I imagine it would be an early Ludens, but I don't think... Oh, it's just going to be the Lost Chapter, okay. I could have sworn she just had 2 Amp Tomes. I might be crazy.
Yeah, she did. That's what that builds out of. You're good.
Oh, is it? I thought it was Mana Crystal and Amp Tome. Well, that's just me not playing mid laners.
That's totally acceptable. And I mean, obviously, Orianna going to be very happy with that. Doesn't have teleport at this moment in time, so it's just going to walk herself back to lane. But we see what is a really big wave in the top side, and with mid wave crashed as it was, we could have seen a dive in the top side, and it was just maybe New England Storm was not feeling confident enough to take that one.
And I will say, while the Hecarim was in a position where he could be dove, I don't know if a Kayn, before transformation, should be trying to dive a Hecarim with ult up, especially when we know that the Ignite is back up too. So the Kayn is kind of put in a weird position here where, you know, he needs to transform as fast as possible, but he's not really getting opportunities.
No, I mean, fortunately had quite a bit of dueling early on, as we might see the Ignite used again. There it is on cooldown onto Tony Little. All going to be used from Drone. Might be able to pick this one up, goes under the tower, but now it's Boxing Buddha that is boxing him in. I think he'll be able to find Hecarim here, but the slow misses, and actually Devastating Arch Charge should come off cooldown rather soon. Level 6 available for Boxing Buddha as he follows Drone under the turret, but this may have been a huge mistake. He's going to pop out under there. Please cut back, as he actually takes 2 turret shots. Does get a lot of orbs off of that gank onto Drone, though. So now it is Hecarim sitting with a health advantage and really not missing much other than the Ignite.
And the Kayn didn't get anything out of that. Lost a lot of health for it, too. He's a little bit back up into healthy because he's going straight for the Rift Herald. This Kayn is really trying to, make up for the weakness of his champion by playing the map as smart as possible.
Yeah, and I mean, he's succeeding, honestly. The fact that we see a Kayn be able to pick up this much in objectives while also being a heavy ganker is actually really impressive out of Boxing Buddha. The fact that we see a Kayn who is not, as we say, an early game champion, sitting with more kill participation than the Trundle at this point is actually massive for New England Stormwolves.
Not to mention the fact that the Trundle really hasn't been ganking, and he's 15 CS down, and that's 15 jungle CS, while the Kayn has been putting work on objectives, lanes, and camps.
Yeah, I think a lot of versatility coming out of Boxing Buddha here has actually very quickly become a player that I want to keep my eye on because of the proactivity that he's shown and the ability to, I want to say, take advantage of and play the map in what is a really unexpected way when we just look at the champion select.
I think it's very interesting that neither jungle is really putting a lot of pressure onto the bot lane, especially the Trundle, because that Karma Ashe has been perma-shoving to turret. And, while trying to camp the Sivir Yumi probably isn't the best thing in the world. He's been given plenty of opportunities to make something happen while the Kane's been sitting topside.
Yeah, but I want to counter that very quickly. I mean, if you are playing with a Sivir Yumi and they're managing to sit under tower against a poke lane, that's a place where Sivir Yumi is very happy. They're going to be able to get a lot of mana off of that, off of the fact that those pokes will be blocked by the spell shield, as well as obviously Yumi being able to sustain quite heavily. And Sivir has farmed up just fine, really not without a care in the world, and getting her towards those later game items is really the only thing she wants to do. It is way more about getting this Hecarim to a point right now where he's going to be able to take over mid-game fights like we want to see from him.
And I do want to point out, I've mentioned this in Champ Select, what they were going to do. Oh, hold on, something's happening mid. A little bit of a trade. Nothing's going to come out of it. Orianna is able to kind of spam these spells just with Lost Chapter, so it's making it a lot harder for the Echo really trying to make anything happen. But looking for another fight top.
Yeah, we still do have the Shadow Dash available, but the ult's going to be used from the Hecarim up here in the top lane, and now Tony Little should just be going down Spirit's Refuge buying a little bit of time. But he has no mobility left to speak of, and that's going to be him being picked up. We talked about just before the power of this Hecarim in the top side. He forces a gank all on his own onto Boxing Buddha, and Terry really is just there to assist with a little bit of damage.
And this is where this lane is going to get scary, because the Hecarim spent his first kill's gold working towards Ninja Tabby, which gave him no damage whatsoever. But this next back is going to give him...
Ooh, wait, Silichip actually gets stunned up. He's going to be taken down under the turret here as he catches right at the edge of that parallel convergence and goes straight down to Leo.
Yeah, that's going to actually be a kill that's going to go over to the Kane, which is not what you want to do for Old Man Gaming right now. The Orianna playing a little bit past her limit there with positioning in the lane.
And it's not just a kill, it's another objective going to be able to be picked up. The fact that they now have mid lane priority and what was already in a shoving bot lane means that Boxing Buddha has now grabbed every single neutral objective on the map so far. That is the Cloud Soul spawning right now, and I'd be surprised if we don't see a very, very early Soul if new Trolls continue to play this way.
I love to see the Cloud Soul come out, because that brings up two very interesting things that could happen, right? So yeah, Old Man Gaming is 2 dragons down, so while it would be a bit of a reach for them to end up with Soul, Cloud Soul on Hecarim is terrifying.
Yeah, I you know what? Actually, just even a single Cloud Drake, honestly, is going to do wonders for Old Man Gaming, and it's not just going to be, as you mentioned, the power of the Soul itself. Is Silichap going to get stunned again? He's getting played by Leo the Sexy Lion in the mid lane here as he's putting him into those parallel convergences, and it feels like Silichap really taking the bad end of a lot of these trades here.
I know, that just looked like weird positioning now. I can't dock him too hard because he still is 20 CS up in the matchup, but not taking very good trades. And the Echo went for the early Proto Belt, so while he may be sitting on less gold, he does have that early active item power spike that might be able to sway a lot of these trades like we're seeing.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of trades, though, I think we're going to see another one on the top side. Drone has that Conqueror popped, and this should be Tony Little losing. I just don't think he knows it yet. Ignite going to be popped, and he goes down, overestimating himself. It's Curtis. He might be in a little bit of trouble towards the bot lane. Riptile already channeled. Bouncing Buddha has the ability to jump into Curtis, but isn't going to use it. His Crystal Arrow goes wide, and Curtis going to be able to walk out, only expending the On the Hunt for himself, and now potentially going to be able to clear into this Rift Herald. I'm not sure if they will clear here.
Is he going to get it out just in time to get those plates? 3 seconds short. They're going to get 2 spread amongst 2 people. Karma wasn't quite in range for those plates, but making a little bit of use out of it.
Ooh, and they actually get the first turret there with the last auto out of Yomi, which is really, really big for especially Boxing Buddha, who has gotten himself a really huge injection of gold with a kill under his belt now. Warrior enchant as well as the first turret. He has first rotation onto this blue buff, and can Terry finally make a fight happen onto him? It's going to be Stand United, though, as Terry now finds himself in a world of hurt. Taunt not going to connect, and he's going to have to get right out of there. Drone is teleported down as well. This is the fight for Old Man Gaming. They are running it down, it seems. Not enough health onto Drone as he just disappears. Now it's Curtis as well as the British Broadcasting Corporation trying to get away, but they are boxed in here, and Boxing Buddha, he was clearing that ward, but he sees a nice juicy 80 carry on the map, and he knows, you know, he cannot resist. Still has the ultimate available, might be able to channel it into Curtis here, should be able to pick up the kill under the tower potentially. Dashes in, might pay for it with his life, but flushes away, and now Leo the Sexy Lion, he's got the Chrono Break available. BBC is going to be sitting under the turret, is just going to be the cat, though, that lives, and a huge play in favor of New England Stormwolves.
Blown away by the team fight synergy, because if you look at these two comps, New England does not have the team fight comp, but they made that look easy with the way that they positioned through the jungle, chased down through lane. Only thing that Old Man looked pretty with was Trundle stopped the Kane dash with a pillar, but a lot of members going down there and being pushed all the way back to a tier 2 at 15 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, we saw just really, it felt like Hecarim not able to push his advantage in the fight, right? Because we saw Drone show up and instantly was taken all the way from 100 to 0 before he could really use anything. Had to use the Onslaught of Shadows just to get on top of Yomi, and at that point has no other mobility cooldowns as we see Silichev actually flash Tonka to connect with him. And I thought he was going to be able to get away, but the flash from Tony says, absolutely not good, sir. You're paying with your life today, and we're going to see a chunk on the mid lane turret after that.
And honestly, I think I kind of like what they're doing because I think the mindset that they have right now is the Hecarim has not been positioning well. I think they're going to try to play off that because the only damage outside of him until that Sivir hits those late game items is going to be the Orianna ult. And if they can keep her in the dirt all of early and mid game, the Orianna ult's just that much less scary than it would be.
That's true. Now speaking of that, Orianna though has found her way, despite the fact that she just died, to the 30 CS lead that we had mentioned before. Has the Luden's Echo in her pocket as well as the Sorcerer's Pen boots, so might be able to make something happen with a beautiful shockwave. And it's really up to Silichev, I feel, at this point in the game, to be the one making these plays, even if it has to be around somebody like Drone.
I know. And I did want to kind of bring it back to that team fight that we saw that just went horrible for Old Man Gaming. I want to say that that team fight was not mechanical difference, not synergy difference. I want to say that that was entirely vision, because had the Hecarim been there where a lot of the power in Old Man Gaming is, he wouldn't have ulted in to 4 people because I think he just thought it was the Kane. He didn't have vision on 3 of the other members that were just sitting in the river. There were no wards to spot those members out.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's Old Man Gaming right there, as we saw it sort of addressing that vision problem, right? Clearing out wards as we approach this dragon. And as much as we saw the last fight not go in their favor, this is the fight that I'm really looking at to be the game determiner. Old Man Gaming need to find themselves a dragon at this point in the game, or they're going to get way too far behind. Boxing Buddha, though, he's looking for this steal. Can we find perhaps a fight after this as well? He's just deciding to try and kill Terry straight up here, dueling the Trundle in the pit. Might actually go down, forced to use the ultimate as Piku Niku goes quite low on the side. Enchanted Crystal going to be used for nothing. Now Boxing Buddha going to be the one who goes down. Terry going to be traded onto by Leo the Sexy Lion. Still has the Chrono Break available, though. Going to have to use it to get his way out of the fight. Actually ults back in onto Silichev, picks up the kill, pays for it with his life. And now it is Old Man Gaming who have the rotation onto the dragon. Still no smite available for them. They'll have to be really careful. Clearing out this pink ward here is Yoni. He looks for the steal over the wall. Can he find it with the volley? It will not be so. As Drone finds the kill onto the dragon, and Old Man Gaming, they salvage what was looking to be a very difficult game.
Very scary trying to test that against an Ashe and a Karma, but the Hecarim does manage to get the kill on that dragon there.
Yeah, I like the play there from Old Man Gaming. They commit to the dragon before we see New England Stormwolves be able to actually group up, because when New England Stormwolves are grouped up, we saw they're devastating, but they clear the vision, start the dragon immediately, and it forces Boxing Buddha to make a really, really hard choice about whether he wants to commit to that fight and get the steal, or whether he just wants to kill Terry. And it ends up being kill Terry, doesn't have the damage, and that whole fight is swung from there on out.
It was very dirty for Leo at the end there to, flash into the back line just to kill the Orianna, but got him a double, got him a lot of extra gold, and I'd like to say that this mid lane matchup has been completely won by the Echo now.
Yeah, it looks like now Drone, though, in a little bit of trouble. Doesn't have Onslaught of Shadows just yet. It's going to be waiting for that cooldown. May have to use it just as it comes up. Leo the Sexy Lion actually doing a lot of damage as he trades back into a Drone that cannot recommit once he sees Tony Little teleporting in.
And there's not a lot that an Hecarim can do against an Echo. There's not a lot of kill confirm on that champion. You look for the burst down, you look for the pop with a lot of Hecarim's kit, but when the champion you're targeting down has an ult that just lets him go back to full health, we're going to see it right here, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, a lot of burst, though, coming out of Drone. It has more sustain than Leo at this point, especially with that Trinity Force completed, and as well as the Caulfield's Warhammer for the cooldowns with a little bit of magic resistance in his pocket. He's not feeling all too bad, and it's going to be really these two side laners trading waves for now, because both Drone and Leo have their teleports available.
And right as Baron is coming up, we see Stormwolf setting up vision already. 5-man strong top. The Echo is going to be TPing mid. they're looking to force this, and I think this is a smart play because the Orianna not strong right now, and the Sivir has not hit her item spikes, and with Hecarim kind of being forced to sit under turret, they have full priority over the Baron pit.
Yeah, he really cannot charge, at least, into Yomi and Pikuniku, who have so much ability to keep the Hecarim at bay, keep him down. It's something that Dron has to be really careful of. He has the Orianna ball on him, but it's really not going to be relevant at this point of the game. Boxing Buddha not even spotted yet by Old Man Gaming.
And there's a lot of no vision on red side. I know that you sacrifice a lot of that with the Yumi, but I mean, if you look at the map, we got a little bit of a fight.
Yeah, Jordan has committed, and he's just going to pick off Pikuniku. He's going to be caught by the Enchanted Crystal Arrow, though, and should be taken down in this bush. Teleport channeled by Silly Champ to try and save his top laner will not be enough, as in the bot lane, Shen gets a turret all on his own, and so many resources from Old Man Gaming committed to a 1-for-1.
I think it's very interesting, kind of now that I'm seeing these team fights play out. This Hecarim doesn't really have a lot of options to disengage once he tries to blow someone up like we saw. He got Katarina.
Yeah, Boxing Buddha has to be really careful here, but the Stand United going to help out so much as taunt onto Terry, a double shockwave there from Silly Champ. Can he survive it? Tony will actually pick up the kill there, and a triple knockup coming right back from the Kayn there will be able to turn that fight completely. Tony and Boxing Buddha, so much health, so much sustain, even though they get hit by that shockwave, it is not enough.
They're going to take that red buff onto the Ashe as their, consolation prize there. And, they forced Old Man Gaming like dogs with tails between their legs back into the base. And they didn't even have to fight for Vision Prio there because they already had it. That fight was so dominant from Stormwolves.
Yeah, I think we had talked about communication versus coordination when we got into this game. And right now, New England Stormwolves looking very, very coordinated in this game one, especially around Boxing Buddha. As soon as the engage went onto him, we saw Shen already using the Stand United. They knew that they wanted to take the fight. They had the power around a Kayn that's already hit his 2-item spike, has Rust in his pocket, and is going to be able to out-sustain so much of the damage. Just now, Grievous Wounds is going to be picked up by Curtis, and it delays Sivir's build by another 800 gold.
And you never like to see that. That's never something you want to do as a Sivir. You never want to be forced into a position where you're having to buy those Grievous, where you're having to buy a QSS. But this is just one of those situations where when you're looking down the barrel of something like an Echo and an Ashe and a Kayn, the Bork Ashe at that, it's just a lot to try to handle for a team that doesn't have the damage right now to handle it.
No, and I think that this is a really excellent time to bring that up because they don't have the damage to handle it, but Windstrike spawning in 19 seconds right now means that they're going to have to find a way to do it without really any item timings to speak of. This dragon is just now spawning. Tony Lil has no global presence here. This may be a fight that Old Man Gaming can take, but what are they going to trade for it?
I think this is a very important dragon for them to grab because while they're not being played around Baron right now, if they lose this Drake, they're going to have to make a decision when the next one comes up.
They won't engage, and Drone is going for it. He's jumping straight onto the Ashe here. Will be able to take down Yomi, lives through it with the assistance of the Yumi. Leo looking to trade back, though, takes down Curtis in a flurry of blows. Gonna ult back and away. Pikuniku taken down under the turret. That is the terror that you were talking about. And we see New England Stormwolves, they lose 3. And they trade it for just 1, but they also trade it for a tower in the top side. Do we get this dragon?
Oh, we absolutely do, because this Hecarim Yumi is just going to be able to play with their food down here. They're not going to be able to kill the Hecarim Yumi, and he knows it. He's fed. He's ahead. The Shin ult does come down, but I'm not seeing a kill here.
Stand United could actually turn this. There's a lot of damage from both these champions as Drone going to go down, and this is going to be the British Broadcasting Corporation, meaning it's untimely and parallel conversions a little bit too late to say goodbye to the Yumi, and it is going to ultimately be 3 kills actually given over to New England Stormwolves, but Old Man Gaming, importantly, they get themselves that Cloud Soul.
And man, I had to eat my words there saying I didn't think a kill was going to come out, but they had a lot more damage on that Echo than I was anticipating. And, we're looking at it right now. It's the Hecarim carry versus the Echo carry, but when it comes down to those two champions together, the Echo just has more support, has more shielding. And like I said earlier in the game, the Echo Hecarim, that's a matchup that Echo's just going to win once they have items, because if the Hecarim can't blow them up, the Echo's gone and the Echo's back to full HP.
Yeah, it is extremely scary, and I mean that's where those Grievous Wounds are really going to be important if Curtis can apply them before the fight onto people like Boxing Buddha as well as Leo the Sexy Lion. But right now they're sitting with was honestly very few turrets to their name. 2 turrets still up in every single lane for New England Stormwolves, as well as a 4, I want to call it maybe closer to 3k gold lead in favor of them. New England Stormwolves not really feeling that uncomfortable right now, especially with the sustain that you talked about. Sivir still has so many items more to get.
And I mentioned this in the pregame, but I really liked, not that I liked, I thought it more of a detriment that the Ashe is going to have to itemize, to be able to cut down these tanks. But the Bork build is, really putting in that work. And I think that's exactly what they needed to do for something like the Trundle and the Hecarim, because no matter how tanky they get, tankiness doesn't really help max health damage very much.
Yeah, Blade of the Ruined King is going to give you that really nice spike that we see being prevalent all the way until sort of that 25, 35 minute mark, where Ashe is going to have to start, or rather continue this snowball of getting gold so that she can afford items that scale slightly better. As wow, Boxing Buddha, he feels really, really good in this jungle. Takes a trade into what he knows is support in the mid lane for Terry, forces him out of his own jungle, and we see the Trundle not really having access to the map here, as now Drone gonna get doubled up in the top lane, or in the bot lane, as Leo the Sexy Lion is extremely scary when coupled with the crowd control of Tony Lil. Not even an ultimate expended there, chunking Drone to less than half.
I think it's very interesting watching that trade there, because I'm starting to realize that that fight between the Echo and the Hecarim is totally dependent on who decides that they don't want to fight first. The Hecarim can just run away after the Echo's, use his little bit of a dash, and if the Echo decides to ult, it's not going to be a fight that happens.
Boxing Buddha goes quite low, but there's the Sand United, and they should be able to pick up the kill here. Enchanted Crestolero goes wide again, and Yumi, you have to put your glasses on, but at least you get the kill. That's been one too many Enchanted Cristoleros going a little bit wide this game. It does, however, result in perhaps the Baron for New England Stormwolves, as there is a pick onto what is most of the Wombo combo.
And be very, very wareful of the fact that the Shin ult and the Ashe ult are both down for this fight. Those are 2 big team fight ultimates that we are not going to see if this turns into a brawl.
Yeah, and look at this. New England Stormwolves actually decide not to take that fight. They know that, like you mentioned, they have those ults down, and importantly, Hecarim ultimate on the hunt, as well as Subjugate, all still available. So much sustain, so much AoE damage for Old Man Gaming, forces New England Stormwolves away from the fight in what was a 4v5.
And we talk about, these are platinum level players, but I'm really impressed with how well both teams are playing around their own and the enemy team's ultimates. Like we saw at the Dragon fight that Old Man Gaming won very decisively because the Shin didn't have their ults up. And the experience, like the restraint to be able to not take that fight there when you knew your Shin and your Ashe didn't have their ults up. A lesser team would have just gone for that Baron and tried to stat check, but New England says this isn't worth the risk. Their team still scales, and if we mess up, it could still be a lost game, and they just back off. And I think that was definitely the smart move.
Yeah, and I think that that's something that New England Stormwolves keeping their eye on cannot be really underrated there, because of the fact that at a point where it's 28 minutes into a game and we have a Sivir in it, you're right. If they do lose that fight, they could start the snowball that would lose them the game. And right now, it's something that both teams have to be super cognizant of. Teleports up on both top laners as this Cloud Drake is about to spawn, and we might see the game start swinging in one direction or another.
And the Sivir is about 1,000 gold out, I would imagine, right now. What's she sitting on? She's sitting on about 750. She's got the BF sword and the pickaxe, so getting pretty close to that IE. And when she hits that IE, while that's not her 3-item power spike, that's going to be a team fight power spike.
Leo looking to deny, though. The stun catches out Curtis and uses the on the hunt to just buy a little bit more space. So much return damage coming out of Old Man Gaming, as it is the choke that they've always dreamed of. New England Stormwolves have nowhere to go as Hecarim runs them all down with the onslaught of shadows that forces the flash into Boxing Buddha, but he's not done with him yet. It's just chasing with the Yumi, the terrifying combo that you talked about. Going to be able to use the blast cone to get back into the pit here, but oh my lord, that choke point does wonders for Old Man Gaming. They pick themselves up the 3rd Cloud Dragon, and
it's happening. It's happening. I'm so excited. I pumped my fist there. I'm not rooting for one team or the other. I was just so excited to see the Hecarim finally pull through very well in a team fight. Hit that very, very crucial charge onto the Echo to knock him out before he was able to rip that ult off. You look, that Echo's ult is still up and he is dead. That's not something you like to see as a teammate. But the Hecarim also hit a very big team fight ultimate onto 3 different people, and it just made it a very easy fight. And this team, this scaling team with the Hecarim, the Yuumi, the Orianna, and the Sivir, all hyper carry late game champs. They've got 3 Cloud Drakes, and those are all champions with team fight ultimates. This isn't going to be an easier game as it goes longer for New England.
No, it really isn't. This is actually extremely scary for, honestly, New England Stormwolves, because once you do start to let something like, say, that 4th Cloud Dragon go over, I mean, you really see Old Man Gaming start to run over the game because they get the movement speed on their ultimates, obviously going to be helping out every single champion, and is going to be absolutely terrifying when it already is what is sort of a dire situation. The gold gap has closed, but the gold gap also really not that important when it's just 3K at 30 minutes into the game.
And I think that, like you just said, they're actually going for the Baron here. And I think this is very interesting, again, because you see the question mark pings coming down. The one thing that Old Man Gaming's been lacking all game is vision, and they don't know that this is happening. And these two can do it.
Yeah, they have a lot of sustain for both the jungler and top laner of New England Stormwolves. Tony Lil and Boxing Buddha are going to be chunked out a little bit here, but Old Man Gaming are struggling to get their foot into the door as they check around this Baron. Baron down to 6,000 health at this point and really no ability to get into this pit.
And the K is taking a lot of hits, which I think is a little weird of them because this guy might die here if he doesn't do something. But I like the positioning on the map right now while they're doing this. And this is a slow process, so I'm not expecting the Baron to go down anytime soon. But a little bit of a fight down here in the bot lane. Oh, they're just going to turn onto it. Like I said, the scuttle goes down. They move onto the Baron. Old Man Gaming never knew it happened, and the Baron goes over.
Yeah, gotten down to below half health before Ash even joined, and that percentage HP damage that you've been talking about all game actually ends up really coming in clutch because they can burn down the Baron from its remaining point that much faster. The gold gap once again increases, but it's not so much about the gold at this point as it is about the power of the Baron.
I think it's a very interesting the way that they positioned for that. I thought it was very intelligent that they put the Echo bot lane because all game, all 30 minutes of this game, the Echo has been where the action has been. And with the Echo being bot lane, holding the Hecarim there, they both had TP, but, you know, if they don't know it's happening, they're not going to think that it's happening if their big power source isn't going to be at the Baron pit. And they're, you know, like we can see, they snuck it very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, there's really no reason to check it, right? Because I see really all of the damage sitting in mid lane until maybe 2-3 seconds before Baron actually goes down, and it turns into what is going to be a very scary split push unless they can address this. Curtis, he finds Tony Lil, has no escape. Silly Champ chasing down with him, and they will be able to address the split push for the Shen, but what else is happening across the map? There could be the pick onto Terry, going to be forced to use the Subjugate for the sustain here, but the Baron minions are trying to break the base here. Turret going to go down to below half health. Leo the Sexy Lion chunks it out, and now the inhibitor is under fire. We just got the backs from Curtis and Silly Chef. They don't have the ultimates available, but Drone, he wants to start the fight, charges straight onto Yomi, uses the Onslaught of Shadows backwards. Leo the Sexy Lion, he's buying time with the Zanyas, is going to be able to, huge Chrono Break takes down Drone, and now Curtis, he's in danger himself. Can he get out of here? Boxing Buddha doing so much work, sustaining up so much in the front line, doesn't even go down. Silly Champ gonna be picked off, and that should be pain for New England Stormwolves.
The game might be over. I mean, they lost 3 people, the Hecarim and the Orianna. That's a lot of their team fight. There's 2 Baron cannons in the base right now, and if this Sivir and Trundle don't push them out or they decide to play safe, they could look to end the game. They've got a minion wave coming in.
Yeah, look, the Stand United going to be coming straight onto Boxing Buddha. Tony Little, he wants to end this game, tanks the turret. It is really the tower that needs to be going down. Boxing Buddha, so much sustain, is going to trade his life for it, but Curtis, he goes down. The next that's soon to follow, Tony Little and Leo the Sexy Lion. The story of this game with the mid-top synergy has been huge as game 1 goes to New England Stormwolves.
And I said it in the pregame, and I'll say it now. Leo plays carry champions, and that's exactly what he did. They didn't have an answer to what they could do with the Echo in a team fight.
Yeah, that was absolutely insane. Well, and you said it yourself, honestly, Leo doing so much work, but Tony Little as well. His synergy with Boxing Buddha, I felt like blew that game wide open from maybe even 10 minutes in.
And I mean, they hit that timer. I said 30 minutes. 30 minutes, they took the Baron, and they used that to make one single push into the base. And, you know, I'm glad I stayed quiet because I was going to compliment the proactivity of the Sivir and the Orianna for picking out the Shin there. But they just, again, didn't have vision. They didn't know where the rest of the team was. And while they're, you know, sucking on their thumbs top lane, the other 4 members of the team are making a power push on your bot inhibitor. They go down to make a team fight happen, and the game just ends. And you hate to see that. But if you're not careful with those scaling comps, that's what can happen, even 30 minutes deep.
I really like the point that you made there, and I want to end on that as we move into game 2, because the fact that the vision control wasn't in Old Man Gaming's favor, they didn't know what was going on across the map, means that even though they get what looks like a really good pick onto the Shen, they do lose the game. And it's that vision that you kept touching on throughout game 1 that really snowballed, it felt like, throughout the game for New England Stormwolves into their ultimate victory. It was that point that we kept seeing Old Man Gaming just misstepping on and losing little by little. And that's something that I want to keep an eye on as we move into game 2. We are going to take a short break before we get there, but don't go anywhere, because we're going to be coming right back at you with the rematch of Old Man Gaming versus New England Stormwolves. Welcome back, folks, to Old Man Gaming versus New England Storm Wolves. We saw it was a really crazy and back and forth game one. I'm very excited to get into game two, but joining me is Spaff, who you'll see on one of my sides here. Spaff, I know that you had mentioned in our little break here something that you definitely wanted to see going into game two, and I'd love to hear it again.
I think that Old Man Gaming has to take the map influencing top laners off the board early in the draft. That Shin, now I will say, the Echo did a lot of work, but that Shin is what made that Echo happen in the early game against that Orianna. We're going to see the Caitlyn getting banned out again. Set as well. Looks like they're going to stick to their bans. Looking for maybe the Olaf Leona if they're sticking to what they wanted off the board. But I really think that the Shin, maybe a Kled, maybe a Malphite should be taken off so that you don't run into that same problem. There's the Olaf. Look like they're going to run back same bans from game one. So that's going to be a Caitlyn as the third ban, but New England's looking to take maybe another mid laner. I don't think they felt very threatened. I think if they take the Yuumi, they're not going to see the Sivir or the Hecarim. Or if they ban the Hecarim, maybe not the Yuumi either. So maybe taking off one of those two synergistic units away from the board, away from the playing field, might make them change their comp entirely. But we're going to see the Syndra come out again. It looks like both teams might be trying to run the same bans for phase one.
Yeah, I'd be a little surprised if we see exactly the same thing, and here's why. Because, first of all, New England Storm Wolves have counter picks, so their draft is going to be that much stronger, and what was already a draft with a lot of agency. Additionally, if we see the Shen into Hecarim again, you know where the Hecarim's going this time. It doesn't have that same potential as a pick. Yeah, exactly. Because it was really a gimmick that got them what was an excellent matchup into the Shen. Not going to go the same way this time. They can flex Shen down to support. They can do anything to get out of that matchup while still having the global power. Yuumi going to be taken away. I expect forces Old Man Gaming to maybe grab the Shen themselves.
I would like to see something like that because I feel like first pick is all you have left is your options to take that off the board, because if I'm New England, I'm waiting for that Shin to be open the moment I'm ready to pick and insta-lock it because of how much work it put in last game. And I think the Yuumi ban, by the way, kudos to that. I think that totally disrupts what they want to do. But we are going to see a Kale drop for Old Man Gaming. And I like the idea of this, but there's the Shin. Shin, good into Kale. They're going to take the Hecarim.
Oh, my Lord. We knew that the Shen was coming. So, I mean, of course, that I'm very excited to see the Hecarim as well is going to take away what I want to call was potentially a flex, but realistically we had determined that was more or less null. I like the Kale pickup as well, not because of the first pick potential, specifically because I want to see Old Man Gaming play this. I know this is something that Drone plays a lot of, and I think that especially at this level of tournament, individual comfort actually counts for a lot. And we could see Drone, who was a really big part of last game, start to pop off. It's going to be the picked up for Old Man Gaming as well, as they get themselves the priority bot laner this game.
Now, I would like to see them forego the support pick here and grab jungle, because you know that Hecarim has to be jungle here, and they're going to go for the Lulu. The reason I said that is because I think that while they're playing into counter pick team, I think that they had to try to conserve that support pick as long as possible. They're going to go ahead and drop the Lulu. That good synergy with the Ashe, good synergy late game with the Kale, but they're going to have to look for bulky mids, bulky jungles if they're going to have any kind of front line. Oh, and there is the Sylas for the Ashe ult and the Kale ult.
Oh, yeah. We are going to get some exciting Sylases this game, I expect. New England Storms was mid laner, Leo the Sexy Lion. We had talked about it last game. We'll talk about it again this game. He likes to play those independent champions, and Sylas definitely going to be one of those. I really like the pickup here, and there are already 3 powerful ultimates on the board. Last thing I want to say, though, Lulu also very good into Hecarim.
You're right. Did not think about that. That is a pretty nice counter pick, so I can kind of see why they grabbed that. That makes a little bit more sense. We're going to go ahead and ban out the Irelia. So here's what I wanted to say. I think they're anticipating the Kale top, which I also am, but Kale into Sylas mid, good Kale matchup. So if they were able to flex that, if they decide that that's where they want that champion to go, that could be a pretty powerful decision if they have that in their books.
I like that point. That's not a lane that I had necessarily considered, because I know that Drone plays the Kale so much in solo queue, but they could just flex potentially even Drone mid lane and have him go up against Leo the Sexy Lion, just see who can sort of outskill with experience, because it's going to be a matchup that I imagine is relatively skill-based, but if Kale has an edge, somebody who plays a lot of Kale games should certainly be able to take advantage of it. We're getting into second ban phase, and it's that Jhin that I mentioned taken off the board for New England Storm Wolves, not going to be able to pick what I'll call a secondary sort of AD carry right now in the meta against that Ashe.
And I will say this before the last ban drops. We still don't know for sure where any of the 3 champions on New England are going, because those can all 3 flex different lanes. That could be a Shin support. That could be a Sylas jungle. That could be a Hecarim top. That could be a Hecarim jungle. We don't know until we see these next 2 picks. Now, I'm anticipating top, jungle, mid in that order, but I would like to see where this is going to go, because there could be, some very interesting decision making based on, where these picks decide to go in the lanes.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really important point, especially when we talk about the Shen and Sylas pick specifically and their relative matchups into Kayle. Being able to flex those around the map actually going to be super useful, as we're going to see what New England Stormwolves want to save for the last pick, and we're actually not going to see it because I have no idea.
Again, still a flex pick. That could be AD carry, that could be support. Pretty sure it's top lane now, though, which is a little bit safer for me on this decision making. But man, you hate to see this as a caster when you just don't know where any of these champions are going.
I'm actually. I want to say that I know, right? But I don't know. That being said, I think based on champion pools, we're relatively safe to assume.
Wait.
That's Nasus. Okay. So if they pick here, I think they want to throw Nasus into the jungle top. Is this right? Am I getting trolled?
So hear me out. Maokai jungle, not bad. Very
wait. Nasus is Victor.
Nasus is Victor. Okay. So confirming Kayle top, that is going to be a Victor into Sylas. I like it because Sylas stealing the Victor ult does not synergize well with his kit. That's not what he's going to be looking to do. That's going to be a Senna Morgana bot lane, which I love the Morgana pick into Ashe and into Lulu.
Okay, yes, you gotta love the Morgana pick into Ashe Lulu, but Senna as an AD carrier right now, as a Senna fanatic, I cannot endorse it wholeheartedly. The 4% soul drop rate on her most recent nerfs hits home when you start talking about what she scales up into, and that's why you pick Senna, is for that scaling.
And I may make some enemies in the chat if I say this, but I'm a big Tahm Kench player. I have played both sides of the Tahm Kench AD carry with Senna support and the Senna AD carry with Tahm Kench. And I'll tell you, I absolutely agree with what you just said. Senna is not powerful as an AD carry right now.
Let alone the chat, Spaff. You've made an enemy on the death. I cannot stand the people like you.
I may or may not have like 1/3 of a million points on that champion.
Oh no, dude. That is gonna be something we're gonna have to discuss off air here. But I think at this point, now that we have the rosters locked in, everything, while it is still flexible, I think we can determine for New England Stormwolves what we're seeing. And what we aren't seeing specifically is what I want to bring our attention to, is that we're not seeing a whole lot of damage coming out of them.
We're not at all. I mean, again, you can see that Hecarim become a carry, but when we're pretty sure that's a Shin top, the Hecarim gets less options to constantly be fighting, and he's really going to have to be proactive, which I will, give it to them. New England was very proactive in that last game, making a comp that, again, made me eat my words. I said that comp was not going to be able to make things happen in the early game, and they did. They got the Echo fed. They had the bot lane shoving in all the time, which was to be expected, but even the Shin was making things happen, being under turret like I thought he was going to be. So, I mean, with this comp, with the Morgana, with the Senna, being able to make these plays anywhere on the map, with the Shin, I mean, all the tools to make these things happen that I said they needed to stop from last game, I wouldn't be surprised if the Hecarim and the Sylas are able to find these kills going too far when they have global shields from 2 different characters.
That's absolutely true, and I do want to very quickly defend you, because you did say I don't expect them last game to be able to be autonomous in the early game, but that was a completely correct call based on the composition. And it's really boxing Buddha who turned that game around completely. He is such an aggressive jungler, and on specifically this Hecarim, I think that is going to pay off in spades. Having Hecarim be able to just run face first into the enemy, he is not waiting for that transformation like Kayn is. He's not even necessarily waiting for that level 6. He brings a lot of damage. He brings it very early, and then you have to get to that item spike. But boxing Buddha, I think he can make enough happen in the early game that it feels like no time has gone by until we see that Trinity Force.
And here's one thing I also want to point out, not just from the champions, but from the play styles. We saw last game New England play a comp that after 30 minutes should have been hard stomped by Old Man Gaming's comp. And again, this game, they're playing an aggressive comp that doesn't really scale that well, aside from the Senna, into a comp that scales super well, but they're going to have huge early game fight potential. And they're on red side, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see lots of early ganks from this Hecarim. And if this team doesn't get a scale, if the Kale doesn't get their items, the Victor doesn't get their items, or the Maokai doesn't have the time to get tanky, you can't do anything when you're forced into 5-man team fights against a team that already has raw stats and is probably going to have a gold advantage looking into the mid game too.
And I think that's a really excellent thing to bring up, because you talk about the amount of gold that we have to get onto Old Man Gaming, and there's something that I heard recently and that I've sort of been parroting around, because I like what it says about the state of the game, and that is if you pick a late game comp, something that doesn't really have a lot of bridges through that mid game, granted Ashe Lulu going to be a little bit of that, but when you pick something like Kale Victor, what you're saying is, I don't think that you as the enemy team are good enough to end the game.
Exactly. I
They actually were.
Yeah. I mean, they did the same thing last game that they're setting up to do now. Old Man just picked a hyper-scaling composition, and I don't know how you go into game 2 after making it to that 35-minute mark with a hyper-scale comp and losing, and coming into the next draft and saying, let's draft more things that take time to get up there, and let's give the Shin over. And I hate saying this before the game starts, but I really think New England really took draft by storm here, because I mean, you have a Victor and a Kale. Like, those are just losing lanes, I mean, you've got the Ashe Lulu for the bot prio, but when both of your solo lanes are sack lanes in a meta where Rift Herald is so much more valuable than early Drakes, I don't know if that's the best decision when you're trying to make it to the late game.
Yeah, and I think that this is something that we're really going to have to see whether Comfort can really win out in the end, because this is extremely comfortable for Old Man Gaming. We mentioned the Kale, and I'm going to be mentioning it a lot because I love Kale, but seeing how this composition plays out and whether it's something they're really comfortable on being able to sit back on these champions specifically, wave clear and buy time, is something that I'm going to be looking for, because remember that even the last game did ultimately go to New England Stormwolves, we also had what looked like almost a soul come up for Old Man Gaming. Now, just before we get into the actual game itself, I do want to support one of our sponsors here. Kono Keyboard is a sponsor of Upsurge here, and if you're looking to take your game to the next level, it all starts with peripherals. From keyboards to keycaps, mice, and more, our friends at Kono have got you covered. It works with the world's best designers, inventors, to make some of the best gaming peripherals around. Kono have been huge supporters of us here at Upsurge, and have made generous contributions to the prize pools for the tournaments that you're watching even today. If you need to find a new keyboard, the Hex Gears X1 RGB low-profile Bluetooth mechanical keyboard is one that you should look at, and you can use the discount code UPSURGEGG for 7% off your first order, so that they know that we sent you. For more information, head over to kono.store to check out all that they have to offer. That is KONO.store, as well as the promo code UPSURGE, UPSURGEGG. Kono, discover amazing products. We'll see you on the Rift.
And when we finally meet, they can, there will be
Welcome back to the Rift, ladies and gents, for Game 2 of Old Man Gaming versus New England Stormwolves. I'm taking off my jacket because it is getting hot in here, Spaff.
I'm so excited. Right as you say that, they all start running top lane. They're going to look for an early kill on this Kayle, and I think that is exactly what they need to break the mental of this player after last game. And they are not going to be spotted getting into this top bush. If the Kayle goes up to check, she is dead.
Yeah, we're gonna see if Drone really can survive here. Gonna be spotted right there. Ooh, binding! It goes so close, but Drone flashed in that level 7 mastery, has that frog tag, and I don't think we actually get a catch onto this very late game scaling champion. And granted, Maokai's start also going to be potentially denied as we see New England Stormwolves placing a ward as they walk away empty-handed otherwise.
And he's just going to deter off into bot lane. It looks like they may be trying to get some deeper vision. They do drop it. So we've got wards on both blue buffs, which is nice to see. The Victor dropping his ward as well on their blue, trying to see if they're looking for an invade. But it looks like it's just going to be a very standard start for both teams. So I'm looking for that level 3 top lane where those junglers might collide if the Maokai tries to come up and counter gank.
Yeah, and so much deep vision going to be provided here for Old Man Gaming. They got the ward on both sides of the map to know exactly what was going on with this Hecarim, and certainly not looking for them to be caught off guard at all, as we're going to see Kayle doing her thing in the top lane, not quite a ranged champion just yet. There's going to be a little while for that one. As Sexy Lion, he's not waiting around for any late game. What late game? Does the game exist past 25? Because I see lane.
And we like to see that because Silly Champ does take advantage of the fact that while Silas does have that little bit of burst in the early game, he's got Corrupting Pot. He's got ranged auto attacks. He wins the trade, but he's going right back in for another.
Dude, Leo the Sexy Lion, he knows no chill. Gonna take the Electrocute proc to the face, though, and does have to be careful. As much as he has fleet footwork, coupled with the Corrupting Potion, he's already down to 1 Corrupting Pot left, and Victor really hasn't expended much of anything to stay where he is right now.
Not at all, and that is not how you want to start off a lane into a wave-pushing champion as a melee mid laner, because now you got the health deficit. You're being shoved in for lane prio right as the jungler is going to be looking for ganks, and when you're the champion that's trying to be proactive and you need to make something happen, that is not what you need to happen.
No, really not. Especially, as you mentioned, this Hecarim going to be looking for a lot of that early priority. Might be able to find a gank onto Silly Champ. The ward might go down, but it's not going to be fast enough. Going to be charged into the wall by the devastating charge. Silly Champ might have to flash the wall, but he doesn't get there in time. First blood to Boxing Buddha. That is what I like to see. Boxing Buddha, he steps up. This is the man that we need to make this explosive early game to happen. And look at him. He's already running down Terry in the top lane. Tony going to join him over the wall with the taunt. Wow. Knock a flash into the tower from Terry. He does manage to survive, but now Drone's in a lot of trouble. Going to be the flash forced out of him as well. And Boxing Buddha taking the game into his own hands.
Very, very proactive from New England there. I mean, oh my God. I mean, the Hecarim getting the first blood was already something that was a bit ambitious for the Victor to step up for, but going for the tri-bush pseudo tower dive there, I mean, they got both flashes out, jungle and top, and when that was the lane we were looking for, I kind of already feel like I know how it's going to go.
Yeah, Hecarim burns his Ignite, but he gets 400 gold and 2 5-minute cooldowns out of Old Man Gaming, and Boxing Buddha should be absolutely feeling himself right now. Secured the top scuttle and now looking for the bottom scuttle as well. Terry really doesn't have any right to the scuttle crab. He's going to smite it away and might just be chased down here. Leo the Sexy Lion has first rotation. They might look to chase him, as in the bot lane we do see British Broadcasting Corporation going to get caught up and going to be taking quite a bit of damage, forced to flash away. As now we cut back to the mid lane. Boxing Buddha still continuing the fight here in the mid lane. Shouldn't be able to find anything. Doesn't want to take a turret shot. Has to be really careful. Leo the Sexy Lion, he looks for the doesn't manage to find it. But Silly Champ, he is so low in the mid lane, has the teleport to get back to lane potentially.
And you really, really like to see that again. I was going to compliment the Victor. The cage was phenomenal for zoning out that team fight, but they took it a little too long. The Silas got his cooldowns back, and there we go again. Solo laner that tries to scale loses his flash before 5 minutes.
Yeah, dude, Leo's so scary. And actually, British Broadcasting Corporation, he doesn't have any flash. Going to go straight down. Beautiful bindings in the bot lane, and that is what really, really scares you about this Morgana Senna combination.
And I was going to ask you, do you know why that Lulu didn't have a flash?
Yeah, she flashed away from binding earlier as we were seeing the fight towards the mid lane.
Because I think that Lulu came into the game hungry because she has been eating binding since the game started. Piku hasn't missed one, I don't think. And I mean, you see that, like, having that happen early, all you got to do is stand inside the minions during lane, but it looks like, British broadcast decides that that's not what he wants to do for this lane.
No, I really don't think that he's had much of an opportunity to not, or rather to move his mouse around. As you mentioned, Piku Miku obviously very talented on this Morgana, and or BBC doesn't really understand where the minions are at this point, because it has been really a story of this bot lane being constantly rooted up. And as much as it doesn't feel like a lot, when the first Morgana binding lands, you take that level 1 pool, it starts building up over time, and Yomi's certainly able to capitalize on that with the Glacial and with the root of his own.
And we're going to see the TP come out from Leo here, which I think was very smart because the Victor had to recall there. He had no mana. He had no health. He couldn't stay once he saw the TP come in, and now he gets to shove this in. Also, one point that I wanted to make was, even though the Victor died, he's not too horribly far behind in gold because the Sylas didn't get kill participation on that kill early.
No, and I mean, he has found himself maybe a little bit up in CS, but it's nothing to speak of, and nothing really across the map is Boxing Buddha. He's looking again for this Lulu.
There it is.
Finding again onto BBC. Will just be taken down, and Yomi grabs that one for himself. A yum Senna has found herself a place in the bot lane. Pickaxe and so much damage out of this horse.
And that is a bit of a gold difference to see at 7 minutes into the game for an 80 carry.
Yeah, and honestly, gold difference across the map is it's already 2K in the advantage of New England Stormwolves, who have been playing this early game really well, now looking this time to perhaps get a dragon for themselves.
The one thing that I'm really liking, just on a mechanic standpoint, I can tell that both solo laners on both sides very comfortable on their champions because they are really playing to their limits, playing around cooldowns. We're going to see a little bit of an Infernal go over to New England, which, could be anticipated with how much more powerful their comp is going to be. But Kale looking to...
Okay. That's actually really big, because by denying that back, he denies minions, despite the teleport that is available for Tony Little. We will not see the abscond land there, but Silly Champ still going to be taking a lot of damage. Maybe not synergizing with his kit, but holy moly, that stolen stolen Chaos Storm does a lot of damage. Oh no, Boxing Buddha, he's already in the bot lane, and Shen and Crystal are going to land, but the Shen this time going to be able to join him, and that is a very scary Tony Little as he runs forward onto Curtis. Binding will land, and there goes the Ashe. Drone has teleported down, though, looking for a play on this Kale. Kale, not known for his teleport ganks, and should just be backing off here before the Binding lands onto both of them under the tower. Should be able to pick up ADP here, as there's the Divine Judgment to save his life, but it might not be for long. Boxing Buddha, he is waiting in the side lanes here, has almost the devastating charge available, and they might be looking for a tower dive, knowing that Drone and British Broadcasting Corporation are going to have to back away here and give over tower plates.
That was 3 bindings that were hit by the Morgana just in that fight. I don't think he's missed one all game.
Let's start a counter. Once when you see one missed, you let me know. I'm gonna write it down.
All right. We'll start the counter at 0 because I'm gonna be willing to bet that he has not missed a binding yet this game.
Yeah, this Piku Miku has been really playing him dirty at this point. Nice gravity well to perhaps delay the trade a little bit. Might not be enough, though. Leo the Sexy Lion does have that ability to regain a whole lot of health on the Sylas with the Kingslayer, so has to be careful even as he does look for that turret dive. And Yomi and Piku Miku going to be able to reset off of this with a lot of gold in their pockets. I expect we see some completed items.
I'm very impressive that the Maokai is able to pull that off with how much pressure New England has on the top side, but it looks like he might get collapsed on here. They do have a lot more engaged, and the Maokai is disengaged, but he's just going to run off into his jungle, and nothing's going to come of that.
Yeah, and importantly, the reason that he's able to do that is because around that bot lane shenanigans that we saw, New England Stormwolves orchestrating a beautiful play in the bot side. Terry was sitting on the Rift Herald that entire time. He was on that objective for about 2 minutes here, and yeah, he's able to pick that one up, but they trade over turret plates and kills to New England Stormwolves here and have actually not gotten themselves a whole lot.
I would like to see this Herald dropped in the top lane because I think the Victor is doing a very good job of holding his own against this Sylas, which honestly I thought was going to be a lot more difficult, but not going to buff the counter there. There goes BBC one more time.
This Lulu is actually like, pour one out for this Lulu. If you're at home, just make sure you take a little while, support our players emotionally, because this is feeling really, really bad for BBC here in the bot lane. Terry is going to get spotted by Boxing Buddha. Flashes in place for an unknown reason, but now it's Drone who has to survive. Dawning Shadow going to buy a little bit of time for everyone, but now Terry is so low and might be able to get out of here. Silly Champ, he's looking for the cleanup on the side. He has walked up from mid lane. Enchanted Crystalero might be able to find somebody, but no, the flashes come out to secure the lives of New England Stormwolves. Now they might see a little bit of a push here, but nicely played from Old Man Gaming to survive.
Good setup into getting that Rift Gold onto the Kale, too. I'd like to see the Maokai leave, and that's... Oh, please leave. Oh, no. Okay. I would have liked to see all of that gold go onto the Kale, but, you know, it works either way. Kale played that fight really well. Positioning very nice. Good job taking the hits on the back end of the fight to kind of even that out and make it possible. And binding number one missed.
Binding number one, but it was on to Drone. I mean, he's such a ridiculous player at this point. I mean, it's really who I'm looking at on Old Man Gaming. Whoa, sorry. Choked it a little bit. He's really who I'm looking at on Old Man Gaming to bring this team together. If we see Kale hitting her item spikes, he's a player that is already playing ridiculously aggressive on a kill with only Berserker's Greaves into a match that we thought was bad.
Oh, yeah, I know. And, like, I mean, I think it's been very well played. Again, you said he had the Kale tag, so, I mean, he must be pretty comfortable on the champion. And it could, honestly, just come from that comfort, you know? While the champions matchup might be poor for the Kale, if you've played the matchup 1,000 times, you know, it's not necessarily a bad matchup anymore because you know what to do.
Yeah, you know exactly how to mitigate those champion weaknesses. And speaking of those weaknesses, we do have what is a very strong rest of the map, at least for New England Stormwolves. Even if you're not getting ahead in that top lane with the advantageous matchup, look at this. Terry can't enter his own jungle right now, and his red buff is being stolen away right in front of him. Yomi already has a completed item, and they might look for a fight in this jungle here. So already at the first rotation, Leo needs to come over the wall as soon as he can. Boxing Buddha's in the front, though. He's already picked himself up one kill onto the Lulu, who has spent more time in gray screen than anything else. Curtis going to be taken down as well. Hecarim surviving as Tony Little. He might be the only trade back. Drone grabs himself a kill in the top lane, but in the bot lane, New England Stormwolves, they are smacking around Old Man Gaming.
And that's going to be a second dragon going straight over them. I mean, we knew they were going to take the early game in stride, but man, they're 7 kills up. They're 2,000 gold, you know, above the other team. And the Cloud Drake goes over. We're looking down the barrel of a Mountain Soul, which is very scary for how off tank and bulky, you know, New England is right now. And that's not what you want to see as a scaling comp, because it just makes it harder on you to take them down when you're already going to be fighting an uphill battle towards late game.
Yeah, New England Stormwolves also hasn't even spiked yet. Boxing Buddha doesn't have his own Trinity for us. We only see really one completed item on Yomi here, and Enchanted Crystal are going to be stolen.
That has good AP ratio, so that is going to be burst if he goes to do it.
I always forget that Ashera has an AP ratio, but you're right. Do you think we see an Ashera just got like half health the Lulu this game? Because she's by far the one who's the most behind. I mean level 6.
I mean, I was going to say, the Senna has double the gold of the Lulu right now. The Lulu is incredibly weak. If an Ashera from a Silas hits that Lulu, I wouldn't be blown away if it just kills her on sight.
I think that'll be where a little bit of my joy comes from this game. If we can see realistically Silas stealing an Ash Arrow is Tony Little. He's actually looking to get away in this top side. Has a huge wave crashing. He might be able to buy a little bit of time.
Ash Arrow coming over from Silas.
Yeah, Ash Arrow really not going to be able to actually make use of that AP ratio though. And Pikanuka roams over just to see her Shen go down.
Good control from Old Man Gaming. I like that they got that pick off because that gives the Kale just that much more free time. And what I think is kind of funny is the fact that that top lane tower is about ready to drop. The Kale has not struggled in this matchup whatsoever. She hasn't gone down once. She's 101. She's 30 CS up. I mean,
30 CS up. 30 CS.
I mean, that's exactly what you want to see. I mean, you know, the gold difference is pretty big if you look at the whole teams, but when you look between those two champions, Kale has 1,500 more gold than the Shin. I mean, they let the Shin through, but I mean, this dude is building Bramble Vest. And I mean, like, while it's going to be good for, you know, the Ashe, I guess, the Victor's not going to care too much about that. And like, the Kale has healing, but you're going to be dead if you don't have a little bit of magic resist as well.
has just hit that level 11, though. Boxing Buddha, he looks for an aggressive play onto Drone, and we actually have 4 members all the way up in this top side here. We might see at this point New England Stormwolves. They are strong across the map. They might look to get this Rift Herald and shut down Drone.
And I do want to make the point, the gold is not on the top side of the map right now. A lot of that gold is in that very fed Senna. And I know we said that it's not a good AD carry, but any AD carry is a good AD carry when you're, 1,000 gold up at 15.
Yeah, especially once she starts, picking up the items that will not only start smacking you and chunking you from way too many units away, but additionally, look at her inventory. She's already picked herself up the Executioners into a team that actually has some really, really important healing abilities, especially things like Wild Growth, Maokai passive, and honestly, even Drone's ability to sustain through fights are all going to be mitigated by the fact that Senna, as an AD carry, is liberated to build these utility items.
And here's the thing that's scary when you play these scaling champions. The Senna is fed. The Senna is very fed right now, but she's also got 34 stacks. That's already 26 AD on top of what she's already gotten from just bullying the lane into the ground.
Yeah, and it's only going to get worse from here, right? That infinite scaling not going to stop at all as, Divine Judgment buys a little bit of time for Drone. Can he turn this around? This is going to be the play to make it all. Shen channeling the Stand United will be enough health onto Boxing Buddha, and now Silly Champ, he might be the one in trouble as well. Chaos Storm perhaps going to find Boxing Buddha. He finds the shutdown, 600 gold, pocketed by Silly Champ. Not looking so silly anymore. This Victor is really looking to become a pressure point here. He bursts down Boxing Buddha, gets himself closer to that next item.
And that's the champion comfort that I was talking about earlier. A lesser Victor would have kept running, but he knew his limits. He knew that he could kill that and turn that around, and he did it. He got a good shutdown, and that's very important when they're playing for scaling.
Yeah, and especially the fact that Drone, honestly, able to buy so much time in that top side, gets killed, but buys the Hextech Gunblade double dagger as well, is going to start getting scary. I expect Quinsus to be the next item for this champion, where Kale can really start popping off once she starts hitting those higher levels.
And, we've been dogging on the Lulu all game. She's pretty behind, but once she hits the Ardent Censer, that's her purpose on the team. And if your Kale is fed, your Victor's fed, your Ashe is got her items, you don't have to do a lot. Your Wild Growth already has enough raw stats as is. So, while putting the Lulu in the ground may have been good for getting the Senna fed, it maybe wasn't the best person in the world to target if you were going to put your pressure on them.
Yeah, it's been an injection of gold that we'll have to see whether it pays off, because New England Stormwolves obviously being able to rotate around that bot side could start to make larger plays happen, and honestly have been around these objectives. It's really just a ticking time bomb in the top lane as Drone. He's already on this tier 2, and Tony can't side lane into this right now.
Yeah, it's just not fun for the Shin. He had his chance to make the lane good for him in the early game, but when you're at this point, it's just you have to sit under turret. You have to be there just to match the pressure, because if you leave, the Kale's not going to. She's just going to push into an in-hit.
Yeah, and Kale at no point going to be forced to evacuate here. Tony Little might actually just go down, going to be forced to use the Shadow Dash away. It's going to be third Drake claimed by New England Stormwolves. They get themselves onto that soul point, but we have got to address the bleeding top side here. 50 CS up as this Kale just takes level 13, has 3 more levels to go until she becomes godlike as we hit a pause.
Looks like Tony Little may have gotten a little tilted because he's out of the game.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see when and if we get a little bit of a reconnect here. Just restarting the router, and yeah, right now I think this is a good time to evaluate the game state. We've already talked about it quite a bit, but why don't we go ahead and recap? Because as we mentioned, top side very much losing. We haven't gotten too much chance to talk about the mid lane matchup though.
Yeah, so that was one thing that was very interesting to me because, Victor he's a scaling champion. He's a little weak in the early game, but, they did end up having a melee matchup for him, which kind of helps mitigate a lot of that, painful matchup. He was able to take a lot of good trades. And like we saw in the early, Silas bursts him, but when Silas is running away and he takes 5 autos on the way out with a corrupting pot ticking from the Victor, you lose the trade. And so I think Victor really didn't have to worry too much. And same with the Kale. They had the matchups to shut down these skilling champions, but they just didn't. It all happened bot lane.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird, right? Because we saw a very similar thing last game where we expected focus to be elsewhere on the map. And instead, it ended up being everywhere but bot lane, right? We thought that we were going to get more ganks towards that Sivir lane. But instead, we saw really the top side with the Hecarim be the focus. In this game, we expected perhaps more punishment to come towards that top side. And here we are now sitting with, 4 kills on the Senna? And she's an absolute monster, but now what are we going to do with that? How are we going to translate that into a game victory? Because as much as you mentioned she has like 28 souls or something, it's 18 minutes. And by this time, you want to be pushing ideally upwards of that 50, 60 soul point.
I know, and I mean, like, she's strong with the gold. She's got, the mana immune, but well, I mean, I'm looking at it right now. She's at 500 stacks, so she's still got a few more minutes because she's not a spell slinger by any means before she's actually going to get that stacked all the way full. And you lose out on a lot of stats before that happens. And so if those team fights start crashing down while the Kayle is scaling and you've not hit that spike yet, I mean, Maokai is Maokai. He's going to be tanky enough no matter what happens in these fights. And if you've got Victor and Kayle just in the middle of the line for these for these skirmishes, you don't have the raw stats to block out a lot of that damage. I mean, the Hecarim is not building tank. The Shin hasn't had the chance to get any gold. He's 50 CS down. And I mean, if Morgana lands all of her bindings, you can kind of like slow that fight from starting or, get some stuff on the back end. But I mean, the Maokai ult is going to be able to run them straight down a lane if that situation presents itself.
I think that's a really good point. Maokai is going to bring utility no matter what, but we actually haven't gotten too much of a chance to address that either because, we never even talked about the fact that something like Maokai jungle was locked in because we were so focused on the actual matchups in the lanes and how that would play out. Maokai really hasn't actually gotten much done this match and has actually found himself in a similar CS deficit, perhaps even more so than the Shen.
You're right. I mean, he's about 2,000 gold down. And, I guess it kind of boils down to what's the game plan because, the Hecarim is 50 CS up, got 3 kills, and he's got his Triforce. But is damage what they need, or is it tank? Because the Sylas has the GLP and the pin boots. I mean, the Senna is remarkably fed. But here's what I want to say. Their way to win this game, in my eyes, is for that Hecarim to be black shielded and to dive the backline. Because if he can't dive the backline, no one can. And they have the utility to do it. Black shield the Hecarim, Shin ult the Hecarim, and then when he's in there... Senna ult it, and he should be able to stay alive. And if you can split up that back line, if you can keep him alive long enough to eat the damage from Drone, to eat the damage from Silly Champ, you can maybe split that fight up just enough to get rid of their front line and run them away. Yeah, I mean, Hecarim has ticked over that Trinity Force mark and is going to start getting tankier. But of course, is it going to be before Kayle starts being able to really just shred through everyone, right? Because that's the other ticking time. Well, we said it already, but that sort of limitation on the timer of the game for New England Storm. We'll see. I knew that if we just had a Tahm Kench in this game, everything would be all right. Then you'd be able to save him. Pikanuka flashing away here. The other sexy lion has to be a little bit careful. Does have the GLP to buy a little bit of time. But these players, and not only the players, but us as well, we're going to be getting back into the game here. And just remembering where everything's at, because Tony Little just got shoved in topside. Remember, we just had the Mountain Drake taken away by New England Storm Wolves, and now they just really have to wait those 4 more minutes until they get a really big injection of power. And what I like, if you notice, they're giving everything to the Kayle right now. All of Maokai's topside jungle, all of top lane, and I'm sure that they're going to transition out of mid lane when this Kale's done farming. All of it's going to go to the Kayle. They know who the hyper carry is. Everybody else is self-sustaining. As long as the Lulu just presses W on the Hecarim after the Black Shield drops, I mean, they've got a team fight. Yeah, this is going to be really scary. Actually, I saw a similar strategy because I was rewatching some old LEC VODs, and I believe it was Shulka, who I saw, like, they had a Caitlyn, and they just moved her into the bot lane with Rift Herald, took all of the farm there, moved her into the mid lane, took all of the farm there, top lane, all of the farm, and we're funneling this Caitlyn in a very similar way as we see the Kayle doing exactly right now. Went from top, took the whole jungle, mid lane, took the farm, and now she's split pushing bot lane against the Sylas. And when I used to coach, that's what I told my team. I said, when that 20-minute mark hits, all CS, all farm on the map belongs to the AD carry, because we played an AD carry centric comp, but they're doing the same thing. As long as you can just get that Kayle to as many items as possible, as fast as possible, that's when your game is going to become the easiest. Yeah, and I think that
I think that as much as New England Stormwolves know that, they're working on punishing that in a different way than taking the fight to the Kale. We see them really, as for grouping around everywhere this Kale isn't. Because as much gold as you have inside of that champion, it doesn't matter if you're fighting as 4 and she's not there.
No, I absolutely agree. And one thing that is also very interesting that I made a point of last game that will lead up for those Kales and team fights, they don't have vision. I mean, look at the vision score between the Morgana and the Lulu. The Morgana's sitting at 41 at 20 minutes. That's nice. But the Lulu is at 10. The Lulu has not been dropping wards, and if you don't have these wards going into these team fights where, New England is going to be trying to dive into your backline, if you're going to get surprised by a Hecarim ult, that's not a great way to start out trying to keep your carries alive.
No, it's certainly not. The Hecarim ult catching you by surprise, I think, is a very quick way to die. And actually, speaking of the Hecarim, I'm not sure if this is common as a mere play-by-play caster, but he's completely skipping past that jungle item, not going for the Cinderhulk at all. I expected him to get a little bit tankier, but instead going for that Death's Dance, wants to blow up a carry, and into things like the Divine Judgment and the Wild Growth. I'm not sure that's a viable strategy.
I was going to say, it's hit or miss here because I like the idea, and I'm not going to count them out because I think that this might be what they're going for. But like I said, their win condition is splitting up that backline with the Hecarim, and when they can get 3 shields on that guy, I think the Death's Dance is actually a very good purchase because that gives him just that much more survivability. And if he's in the middle of their whole team, he's going to be able to sap a lot of health too. With the healing from the Death's Dance, the shielding from his team, and being able to jump into the backline, I think that if they can get the Hecarim there, that's where they're going to win the fight.
And of course, a lot of additional tankiness going to be given to him by the Shen, who, as much as he's not directly attached to the Hecarim like a Yuumi would be, is still going to be an exacerbator of those tanky stats, because we've seen Tony Little and Boxing Buddha doing exactly what they were doing last game and basically constantly making plays together as... What? Where did she go? What happened?
Uh-oh. That is
that's going to be a very dead Lulu, I think, is the best way to put this. Is we're all struggling for exactly the words to put to the loss that we have felt five times this game, but still hits just as hard as the first.
I get maybe where the idea was to get vision before the dragon comes up, but man, she didn't even drop a ward before she died, so... I kind of just want a montage of like Scooby-Doo music with Lulu's deaths this game, but we're hitting a little bit of a fight at the red buff, and Maokai is just going to drop before this dragon hits.
Yeah, Maokai's already gone, and it's really a foregone conclusion. Tony Lil should be able to get out of this, has the Shadow Dash to try and escape Silly Champ, and as much as he, quote, can't side lane into people like Victor and Kale at this point, it hasn't really mattered because he's absorbing pressure while we see these dragons being taken down. This is Soul Point. You have no jungler, you have no support, you're not going to be able to pick this up, and Soul goes over to New England Stormwolves.
And like I said, what does the Hecarim need? He needs stats and he needs shield. And he just got much more of that just inherently from the Drake and the Soul buff. Anything that they need, they're getting. And like they have the tools, Old Man Gaming does to stop these from happening. They're starting to hit their item spikes, but getting caught out of position with the Lulu and then right thereafter getting caught out at your red buff alone is the Maokai. Like, you can't be doing that right before Soul comes up.
No, this is, I think, just a little bit of being lost while Old Man Gaming wait for this Kale to hit her power spikes, right? Because I think that at that point, given the amount that they've invested in the Kale, they know what to do. But until she hits that level 16, which should be coming in a little bit a little bit more than half a level, that's really all that you have, is the ability to walk around and try and get vision and buy a little bit of time, but nobody really has as much gold or impact on the map as the Kale does at this point. Most gold on her team, and now almost at that 3-item spike as she's picked up the Gnasher's Tooth for herself after the Hextech Gunblade.
Yeah, and I want to also point out that when we talked about the Senna about 6 minutes ago, she was sitting at 30 stacks. She's at 63 now, and I don't know where she's grabbing all these souls from, but she is scaling fast. She is just under 300 AD right now, and those autos are going to hit hard if she's able to stay alive in team fights.
Yeah, once you start hitting, I want to say about that 80 to 100 soul stack, that's really when you can consider Senna to be online, in my opinion. And of course, now she has the Mountain Soul as well. It's going to afford her quite a bit of safety, something Senna already has in spades, working towards that rapid fire cannon. And honestly, feeling really good as Drone. He hasn't hit the level 16 yet. I think Boxing Buddha needs to stop him before then. The Divine Judgment going to buy a little bit of time. Drone still not going down, but a huge chunk as Boxing Buddha and Leo the Sexy Lion, they grab this man and they force him down. The kill that has escaped the quote Divine Judgment all game finally falls, and it is a 1 and 2 Kale, not yet at that level 16, but Yomi, look at him. Oh, Jesus. He does so much damage, and this actually could be Lulu going down. Uses the Wild Growth onto Curtis for zero reason. And I think maybe in a little bit of a panicked moment, is just going to lose Old Man Gaming the mid tower here.
I know you absolutely hate to see that, but when both your solo laners, both your damaged champions go down right as Baron is available, Soul's gone over. I mean, you expect them to either just shove down the mid lane and take an inhibitor or fall right back onto the Baron because you know there's no vision on it. And it looks like they're going to take the ladder. They're going to start the Baron right off, you know. The Kale and the Victor just now respawn, and I'm not seeing a world where this Baron gets stolen.
No, I like, you really just cannot contest. This Drone has the teleport available, but what are you teleporting to as Drone? You have no vision, and there's the teleport flank. This is a choke that we talked about. Boxing Buddha comes in big, gets a huge onslaught of shadows. This is the fight to end the game. Double kill for Boxing Buddha. Might be a triple, but Yomi grabs one for himself. Tony Lowe grabs one for himself. They turn back onto the Baron. Nobody really wants to fight Drone at this point, even if you know that it's inevitable. You really kind of sweat.
Oh, we actually see an FF come out from Old Man Gaming, and it looks like we're just going to see New England take the series off of a surrender.
Yeah, and as much as it hurts, it felt like that was really the only way to go, because you did have the level 16 Kale, but odds are that at the end of that game, we still see the coordination and the utility fighting of New England Storm Wolves be able to take that game.
And you know, you hate to look at it this way, but man, we were talking about how fed that Senna was, how ahead she was all game, but you look at the gold graph, and the Kale had just as much gold off of pure CS. And 2 games in a row where Old Man Gaming, they get to the point in the game where their comp should be strong, but they've lost so much pressure. They had no vision, and all the objectives have gone over that even if you are strong, the other team has just gotten the objectives that make them just as strong, and you're not going to be able to fight that.
And I mean, once again, I mean, you brought up the vision, and I think that can tie back very nicely into the narrative that we set up for ourselves at the beginning of the game, because Old Man Gaming are, of course, a team that has been playing together for a very long time. These are players that know each other, and we saw that in the way that they played the game, in their macro, in terms of who they funneled resources to, even their team fighting, very well coordinated. But it was in the vision game, in the fundamentals, that New England Storm Wolves are able to train in their players via being more organized as an org, I want to say, that really ended up being the difference makers here. The vision scores that you talked about mid-game were absolutely terrifying, and those are League of Legends fundamentals that have been trained into their players, as opposed to people that really, really know each other and like to play together. As much as they're strong, it's still those things that they need to come back to so that they can continue to succeed with their beautiful teamwork like they have in UJL.
Yeah, and I absolutely don't think that either team suffered from a teamwork perspective, but I do think that the vision not existing for Old Man Gaming, it makes it difficult to make that teamwork happen when there's just that inherent advantage. You can't play around something that you can't see. And when your support is getting killed on repeat, it makes it impossible for your AD carry to get the gold. It makes it impossible for you to have that dragon pressure. And when you're looking to scale, those really early drakes where everyone still doesn't have their items, that's what you kind of need to get. And when those are just falling over left and right, you know, it kind of makes you turn your camera towards that vision score, because it makes you wonder, if there was more vision, would the Hecarim have gotten his fed off bot lane? Would the Kale have had to play so far back even though she was winning lane? I mean, the answer is no. But like you said, these are newer teams. One has a season under their belt. One is brand new. And I think they both came out swinging pretty hard. We got 2, close to 30-minute games. And I think it was very interesting to watch the dichotomy of what would be a scaling comp versus what was supposed to be an early game smash comp. But, at the end of the day, it looks like New England just kind of made their comp work better.
Yeah, and I applause to both teams because, as you mentioned, fascinating series to watch, and I really felt like there were those opposing win conditions that we felt were ticking down the entire game. I really enjoy. Camera positioning. I hope it's all right. But we really saw them be able to play to their win conditions, and even though it didn't work out in the end for Old Man Gaming, it was clear they had a game plan going in. I really enjoyed seeing it. But that's going to be it for us at Upsurge, because we have finished off our first week of our first game of UJL here. I'm going to thank you, Spaff, for joining me on the desk, because I have had an incredible cast with you. And thank you so much, Finnick, for the production that we have here at UJL. And a reminder that Upsurge will be back tomorrow with UPL, where we're going to be watching Mirage play, and it's still determined. Either that or TBA is the actual abbreviation of the team, and I'm still working on that myself. Either way, please tune in right back here tomorrow, and we'll be seeing you on alternating dates.